things not working. Last attempt. All right.
I know. I just got a tweet.
Hello, everyone. We are live streaming now. Technology. Hi, everyone. All right. So we have our lovely panelists. I think we are live, everyone. So don't. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all for your patience, especially. And I believe we are live. We're just going to check with our friends at Stagehound who have been so patient with us too and helping. And it looks like the people on the internet are watching the trailer. Terry, would you mind scooting back a little bit so I can see the audience here? So we have this really cool interactive app here. So Resolve, the National Infertility Association, and Resolve New England have sponsored this event, and we have people all over the country logged into this app where they can ask us questions and hear and hopefully see what we're doing. Can they see us? Look. Hi, can you see us? I don't know if we're up yet. So there we all share an interest in infertility, or we know someone who has struggled with infertility. I myself found myself in this world much unexpected when my husband was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and I found it a very hard world to navigate. And I'm a filmmaker, so I thought, well, I can't control my fertility, but I can make a movie and try to help other people deal with this. So, which water is mine? This is that one, yeah. So these guys are still out. So when the film was invited to come to Boston, and it was National Infertility Awareness Week, Kate here from Resolve New England agreed to support doing a panel. So I want to thank you all so much for coming, and give a big round of applause for Kate for sponsoring this. And I can take a breath. Yeah. So why don't we each introduce ourselves? Again, I'm Amanda. I'm the director of Have a Baby, the documentary. And Kate?
Do you want me?
Yeah.
So I am Kate Weldon LeBlanc, as Amanda mentioned, and the truth was I was just so thrilled that not only was this movie coming to Massachusetts, but that it was coming during National Infertility Awareness Week, and it's been so wonderful to get to know Amanda, and we're all so excited to watch Have a Baby together tonight. So I am the executive director of Resolve New England. It's the best job I ever had because nothing is closer to my heart than helping people that desperately want to be parents and are struggling to do so. That, like Amanda, unexpectedly I found myself in that club when we were trying to be parents. Unfortunately, we were successful after about 3 years, and we have an 8-year-old daughter. And so I'm just so glad to be at RNE, where we provide education, support, and advocacy for everyone who's trying to build their families. And so we're very excited about tonight, so thank you so much.
I'm Linda Vinipiano. I'm an infertility nurse. I work for Share Fertility Institute. I have spent the last couple of years with Amanda, and now I'm tracking after her around the country while she does this. This is her project, and I always like to look at it, this is my passion, this is my life, so there aren't any ends to what I wouldn't do for it. She's going to move on to other projects one day in life, and this is always going to be my passion, from being an infertile woman to working with thousands of patients. This is what I do. So I just adore doing this and being here, and whoever I can help. It's such a rough world to navigate, for sure.
Hi, I'm Keiko Zoll. I am a freelance writer, journalist, graphic designer, web designer. I do a little bit of everything. But I'm also the founder and editor-in-chief of The Infertility Voice, which started as my own personal infertility blog and has since become an online infertility magazine for the infertility community. And Amanda had approached me for this film, which seems like so long ago now. I'm a mom after infertility. I have a 3-year-old son, and been very passionate about being an advocate for this community. I do a lot of writing for the community, and just being able to advocate all different causes that are important to infertility patients, and just really excited to be a part of the panel today.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Darcy, and I'm an author and a coach. I'm probably the oldest one on the panel.
I don't know about that.
I've been around for a while. And I share the same sentiment that this is my passion. I never knew what infertility would do to a person until I experienced it firsthand. My son is 18, and he's very tall now, and my daughter is 12, turning 13. But way back when, infertility wasn't out as it is now, and I'm so excited to be part of this project because there have been huge strides, but my passion is the emotional component, the emotional resilience. And I'm just thrilled to be included in this conversation. Thank you.
Terry, if you wouldn't mind just typing into people that they're gonna, that there's like a backlog in the stream, so hopefully, we can fix that. So one of the things that I wanted to start with is the theme for National Infertility Awareness Weeks, Start Asking. And said they were tired of people continually asking them, when are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have kids? So they said, stop asking me. And there was a hashtag, and a stop asking that started going, if you could just lean back and the start asking theme is really about not shutting down the conversation, but opening up the conversation, and for all of us to start a dialogue, and that's what's so great about this panel. So I wanted to ask Kate, for starters, why do you think infertility is so misunderstood? And what is it, why is it that speaking out about it is helpful for the community?
Well, I think as people have said, I think for a long time, and I do feel like this is improving, which is good news, infertility was such a quiet and lonely journey, I think, because people, it's so intimate, and so I think people really didn't talk about it, and so people didn't necessarily learn about their fertility or about infertility until they knew there was a problem, until like the first time they went to their own doctor or to a fertility specialist. But one thing that makes me so happy about, I think, the growth of social media and blogs and a lot of other things, and National Infertility Awareness Week, is I think it is so reassuring to see all the posts about infertility and all the people sharing support in person or virtually in communities, and because I think that is so crucial to what is already a difficult journey, but at least you understand that there's other people out there who get it and understand, because unless you have gone through it, I think you don't really understand, and so people are well-meaning, but you just can't feel in your bones what it's like, and it's hard to explain unless you've gone through it, and so that's why we feel like peer support in whatever form you find it, whether it's groups like ours, or like I said, I think social media is such a powerful place for support right now, and so I think that's just a big part of why it's misunderstood, is that it's been not talked about enough. And the start asking theme, I think, is really interesting, because I think someone questioned me on Facebook today. It's like, what does that theme mean? But I think what it is start asking good questions. Don't ask me when I'm gonna have kids, or even if you have one kid, don't ask me when I'm gonna have another kid. Because you don't know how emotional those questions are, but start asking good questions. And it's been so powerful to see. There's been a whole series of photographs on Facebook and Instagram and whatever of people holding their question, and I have been so moved by it. Some of the questions are like to legislators, which I think is a great one. Why isn't this covered by insurance? But then I also felt it was so lovely. Someone was holding a question that said that she would ask her friend struggling with infertility, and it said something like, how do you want to be involved in my pregnancy? And just opening that door to how, because I don't think there is one right answer. It's how your friend or loved one can deal with it at that particular time. So stuff like that has been just very encouraging.
And one thing that we've seen is that the internet has really allowed a lot of support for people with infertility, but sometimes that can also take a turn. And I know Linda has some strong opinions about how to navigate the internet for support.
So I just did a video recently at work where I said internet for the infertility patient, friend or foe. And my short answer is friend. It is. Because it's there for support. And it's there for support when you need it to be. And there are times we don't want to talk about this. And I really don't want anymore. I'm done crying. And so it's not there when I don't want it there. And I love the anonymity. And infertile women have been talking about their infertility for years, just usually anonymously. In blogs or online. I mean, I had a miscarriage 20-something years ago, and back then it was AOL chat rooms, dating myself, but nonetheless, still that's where your support was, but it was anonymous and it was safe. So for the support, absolutely. I caution my patients all the time about getting educated from other patients. Patients aren't always accurate in how they report. Sometimes they, because again, and they're not medically, necessarily the right ones to be reporting how they report. Most important is there's a skewed reporting out there. So for example, I would have conversations with patients about transferring 2 embryos versus 3. They say, no, I want to transfer 3. I want to increase my chances. I said, you don't want triplets. No, actually I do want triplets. And my neighbor's housekeeper's son, they had and cute babies, cute this. And I said, and that's the only one who's out there posting. You're not hearing from my 19-week pregnant patient who lost the babies in the shower. See, she doesn't get out there and post about that. So you're getting a very skewed idea of what's real out there. Many who haven't. Maybe they post and maybe they don't, but the ones who are successful absolutely do post. So now you've got this skewed idea that it's happening to more, and more than that, it's not happening to you. So just beware, that's the nature of reporting in the internet. There was a great hashtag called hashtag social media is not real life. And that was for all the things we see out there on Facebook or Instagram, Photoshop, pictures, just whatever. People can display their life in any color and flavor they want to out there, we get that. Well, infertility and the path we take, we're not safe from that. That absolutely can happen. And I did a video where I said infertility patients are justifiably insane about things. So we shouldn't be, and again, I say that they're well aware of it, me too. Everything is very fragile, so use it for support and then let it go after that. My biggest advice.
So Keiko, you have used the internet for good, and I think that's what we're trying to do here today, is to use the internet to share information, and despite all of our technical difficulties, we actually are live now. People were seeing me talking and waving and testing, but now we actually are live on the internet, and the whole reason we wanted to broadcast this was to make the conversation national. And you have done a lot of work on the internet, and with a sense of humor. Can you talk about how we can harness the power of the internet and social media for good versus comparing and despairing? You got 5 eggs, I only got 1, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So when I initially started writing online in my own experience, and to be able to educate our friends and family that knew about our struggles, but I didn't necessarily want the whole wide world to know. And then thought that like 6 people were gonna watch this video that I made, and it exploded overnight. And in that video, I came out, so to speak, about my infertility experience, about who I was and writing on this blog. And I saw a tremendous amount of just this wave of support happening as people were watching this video and then sharing that video with others. And I think the biggest thing that came out of that experience was people saw this video and they said, oh, I've experienced this too. And I'm talking about people I went to high school with, people I went to elementary school with, sending me a message on Facebook saying, thank you for being public about this, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so helpful to see other people talking about this. And so that's really driven a lot of the work that I've done in terms of my writing online for the infertility community. And I think the way that you can really harness social media for good and the internet for good for the infertility community is one, first is definitely myths and stigma. But no, I mean there's all these just kind of like different stigmas, and that's not how it exists. So dispelling myths, portraying realistic portrayals of what infertility really is like, what it can be like. So I think it's, using social media to dispel myths, to share real, honest, genuine stories of what the infertility experience is like for all different men and women, and to also use it as a platform to inspire others to affect change. And I think one of the great things about the Start Asking theme is that it's this hashtag that's been trending, and it gets more eyes on the subject at hand, which is raising awareness about infertility. So I think using it in the context of advocacy is also incredibly important.
Oh, that leads me perfectly to my next question. Kristen, don't worry, we're going to get to
Oh,
you.
okay.
But I have another question for Kate about advocacy. I found myself somewhat frustrated while I was making the film because here in Massachusetts, it's a very rare situation where you have such fantastic mandated health insurance coverage for IVF. I actually considered moving back to Boston to move in with my family when I was going through IVF. But what kind of advocacy is Resolve doing? What is Advocacy Day? What small changes can we make now, and what is the eventual goal? Do you think it's realistic that health insurance might cover infertility coverage, or at least testing and diagnostics for it?
I want to say yes. I am a very optimistic person, and that is certainly my goal, and I mean all of our collective goal and vision. So I will say yes, someday. The unfortunately, I feel personally, the short-term answer is that it's really challenging right now. And there are a variety of reasons for that. I won't get too technical, but I definitely think hopefully we'll have opportunities to talk about it after. But so I know Resolve and Resolve New England work tirelessly with many, many partners, including those here, to enhance legislation and coverage that already exists, as well as to advocate for, legislation and coverage that doesn't exist yet in the states where we want it. And unfortunately, I think in many ways we have to take that in chunks, because unfortunately getting widespread national coverage for infertility just isn't realistic. And even on a state-by-state basis, it's been challenging because there's a provision in the Affordable Care Act that actually makes it difficult. If you didn't have a mandate prior to the ACA, it's much more difficult than to add one. There's a fear by states that if they add it now and didn't have it before, that they will have to carry even bigger of a financial burden of that. So in some ways it's gotten harder, but that's why we're really trying to carve away different aspects of coverage. And so that Resolve Advocacy Day is an annual event, which is really wonderful, in May in Washington, D.C., and people come from all over the country. I think right now like 40 different states are represented that are coming next month to Washington. And people come from all over the country to meet with their legislators about Resolve's legislative priorities each year. And for the past couple years, basically, the main pieces of legislation are, well, one in particular is to specifically address access to infertility treatment for veterans. Because even veterans that have had their reproductive health injured by their military service, they still potentially face a ban on IVF in the VA because of a ban on IVF specifically in the Veterans Administration. And so obviously we feel that the lack of insurance coverage for anyone who's infertile is an injustice, but particularly for veterans who have given their service and then want to build families and can't is just so outrageous that, again, we've started in what may seem like a piecemeal approach, but strategically we feel that's actually a better way to do it. But also, I think more maybe optimistically, we and many other partners, Fertility Within Reach is here, and as I mentioned, Resolve, a lot of us are working on trying to get employers to cover infertility. Even if it's not mandated by their state, they still can opt in to have that be added to their insurance package. And we have found that if employers do that, it makes their employees, even if they don't need infertility treatment, makes them so grateful and loyal to their companies. I know it certainly would do that for me. And the reality is, even though infertility is very common and 1 in 8 people will go through it, the chances are in a given organization there aren't going to be that many people that need it. So so that's just a small example, but we are trying to make employers.
Yeah, and the ban at the VA, was that partly due to pro-life legislation?
That's my understanding, is that it was sort of opposition to the technology of IVF. And I mean, that's not unique, unfortunately. We experience that even in Massachusetts, which is a mandated state, there are gaps in insurance because self-insured or employers and others don't have to honor the mandate, and so some of the companies, it's for religious reasons. I know we get calls at Resolve New England all the time. I got a call from a woman whose husband was a resident and was waiting on his match, and one of the hospitals was a Catholic hospital in Massachusetts, and they would not cover IVF because of they would cover IUI because it's inside your body, but not IVF. And so on top of sort of the resident match process being a stressful time in their lives as a couple, they also had to worry about what the insurance was gonna be at the hospital where he was ultimately matched. So it's very upsetting. And so that's why we're all working towards change. And I will say Advocacy Day is so inspiring, because you take all this passion that we have, all this personal passion that we have, and start marching those marble halls, and it is very powerful. And even again, just in terms of building community, which is such a priority of mine and ours, just to see everyone, orange is the official infertility color, and to see people wearing, this is sort of orange, wearing their orange ribbons all over Washington is like really good to see.
Well, thank you for explaining that. I know that's, it's a little overwhelming for people to understand, but I think it puts it in perspective that if veterans who, pardon my French, have gotten their reproductive parts blown off by an IUD can't get covered, it's gonna be hard for the average person to. So I think going to employers and to our communities and having increasing awareness and having people understand how this affects everyone or freeze their sperm, and even that hasn't been covered by the government. So the government has some philosophical issues and religious issues, and we have to do it amongst ourselves in the community. Kristen, this is not just a medical issue, this is also a mental health issue, and I think that's another thing that's really misunderstood, is that the mental issues that infertility patients can go through is really similar to other medical diagnoses like anorexia nervosa or something like that, where you really need mental health support. And oftentimes the reproductive endocrinologist is not the right person to advise you on that, and especially for couples, this can be incredibly stressing on a marriage. Can you speak to the mental health aspect of infertility?
I am still learning. It's my passion to learn about the emotional component of infertility. And I've had the privilege of walking this journey with so many strong, brave women that go from, I'll use myself as an example. I had my own business. I was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I had my own home, and then I couldn't get pregnant, and I lost myself to this journey. And so what I have come a study of is how the emotional component, how a whole personally and professionally, is that we get broken, we get heartbroken, and then we start to believe our emotions. And there's chemical, organic changes that happen within your body that you become victimized. I went, and then that's when the bottom fell out. And what I have learned about myself and what I have learned about other women going through this and men is that the cycle of the emotion is actually graphic. And just like your graphic, and you know, when it's your husband who has male factor, or when it's you, it doesn't matter. The emotions are mirrored back and forth between two individuals, and they're the same emotion, but a male and a female process and move through those emotions very, very differently.
Speak it, sister.
So I think, you know, my soapbox is really standing there saying that we have to look at someone going through this journey, going through this process as a holistic person. You know, you're not just a uterus and you're not just a penis, excuse me if I can say that. You know, you have emotions, there's a mind, body, soul component, and then you talk about the spirituality of this. You're bringing up some of the beliefs that people are looking at, that they've been brought up believing that that is something they can't, and then you have to negotiate that also. So this journey to become a parent, you know, when I was growing up, my mother, God bless her soul, never said to me, look it, sweetheart, if you can't have a pregnancy after 12 months of trying to conceive, then I want you to go see a reproductive endocrinologist and then build your team. You know, you need to get a psychologist or a coach to help you through this and eat right. You know, there was none of these conversations. That's why I love the hashtag Start Asking, because you have to look at the whole person. And so I hope that I answered that.
Meanwhile, my daughter probably knows too much about fertility.
Well, and this, I've never even talked to Kate or Rebecca at Resolve about this, but one of my personal questions and requests is I hope that maybe even just literally 15 minutes of sex ed could be about infertility, because I know it's incredibly important that we don't have teenagers running around pregnant and to get knocked up. But just know that this does exist, so that it doesn't seem so intangible when you hear that diagnosis. What the heck is that? I've never heard of this.
Well, I think reproductive awareness is so low already. You know, I think, like I said, I feel like you don't really even understand your fertility until you realize there's a problem with it. And I mean, sex ed in general, I feel like is so inadequate and narrow-minded and just whatever. It could be so much better. And definitely, I agree with you that preparing people for infertility would be great.
Well, I just wanted to say one other thing about that. Where women transition from a pediatrician to an OBGYN, what is missing and what is lacking in the conversation is really about men. There is no continuous care. I have an 18-year-old son that I talk about fertility and you know, check and your doctor, because you know what, I partners in this, because it's all affects us, that men have continuous care also. So that's a little bit of my soapbox too.
So do we have any questions from the audience here? Does anyone have questions? Do we have time for questions? Is there anyone on the internet who has a question? Because we can just keep talking. But why don't you tap me if we have a question from the internet? What Kate, do you think is the biggest problem that the infertility community is facing?
To me, it's the lack of coverage, because, you know, and I mean, we've talked about how, I think that's what's made me, part of what's made me a passionate advocate is, as I said, we went through infertility and we had all the emotional suffering, which to me was far worse than the physical. I mean, the physical is not fun, but to me, it's nothing compared to the emotional roller coaster, and nothing can prepare you for the depth of it. But we did not have the financial worry. We were in Massachusetts, we had amazing coverage, and we did not have that.
People who, and again, staff as well, whether they don't maybe do the kind of quality cycle, they might not want to move forward on testing that the doctor recommends because it could be some money out of their pocket to make them have a better chance. They'll, you know, order twice as much medications because heck, I only have a copay. These are all the kind of things that insurance companies look at, and I watch these abuses happen all the time. And until we start treating, are you kidding me? That's a no-brainer. Of course I would do it. I'm not going to lose $15,000, but people who have insurance often have a, well, let's see if this works, and if it doesn't, then maybe I'll consider doing that. Or maybe they're with a doc who wants to do immune testing, and I don't think so. So they compromise their cycles.
So even ultrasound facility. So it's, you know, even in a state that has like the top-notch infertility insurance coverage, there are still people, again, folks that are dealing with self-insured. If there are companies with 49 or fewer employees are exempted from the mandate, you know, you can still be paying, you know, quite the pretty penny, and that was for a single cycle. A single cycle.
I just want to say an important, and then we'll open up for questions, just an important thing I always try to tell people is that infertility is a disease. It's not an inconvenience, it's not, you know, oh, I wish that was happening for you. It is a disease of the reproductive system, but yet it's not treated as such in our healthcare system, so just wanted
Okay, we have a couple questions here in the audience, yeah.
Just more a piggyback on that. So I'm a mental health clinician in the North Shore. And so for me, you know, I work a lot with this population and I just noticed that there's not a lot of groups. So I started one in my baby, so they really kind of just stay in a lot. And so that's been one of the things that I see fall short in the area is just not enough support groups.
Yeah, so it's more of a statement than a question about the sort of
Yeah.
lack of support groups, because people tend to get very isolated.
So, you know, I don't know exactly where you live, but at Resolve New England, we do have a whole network of support groups, including several in Massachusetts, and I agree with you, I don't think it's enough, you know, even like I said, and I know this is a goal of National Resolve, to have at least one support group in every state in the country, and that isn't the case right now. So we have been joining with them to make sure that's, you know, becomes a reality. But there are also a lot of virtual communities where people can connect online, and I am amazed at, for myself and just witnessing the connection and how
There isn't maybe physicality, but what I offer is a group once a week that people can call in through Google Hangout. And what is so amazing too that we haven't talked about is that the support group online is to show us the sock, and then you get this sock buddy and your fertility journey with it. And I think what is so powerful, but there's also so many other offerings, put their toe in.
You know,
Embryo was to
Talked about the Start Asking campaign. What are good questions? I mean, I would never ask anybody when they're gonna have a baby or when they're gonna have another baby in the first place, so I don't know how to engage in that kind of conversation with somebody. Or if somebody opens it up, then what's a good thing to say?
Can whoever answers repeat the question, so.
Okay, so the question was about the hashtag Start Asking and what would be a great question to ask. And through, you know, just, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I had this amazing friend come with a client of mine. And she came because she said to me, I'm not supporting her in the way she needs to be supported, and I don't know what to do. And I thought, how amazing is that she is already asking a great question. And so one of the strategies that I have is to really do a honey-do list and ask somebody just to write down 3 things that they need right now to be supported. And it really isn't about the fertility per se, but it is really about what they need right now. And so that's just a perfect question to say, you know, how can I be the most help to you right now? I remember when I was in the process of trying to create my family, and from the outside looking in, you really don't know what's going on in someone's life. You know, I looked like I had it all together, you know, working, because infertility, you can't see it. You know, you just don't see it. You know, I was up and dressed and had my makeup on and my clothes on and working, and I looked fine, but inside I was far from that. And I remember this man saying to me, you know, when are you, it's gonna date me, because he called me an yuppie, you know, selfish yuppie going to have a child. And, you know, I was such an angry woman at the time, my tongue went loose. But this is an elevator speech for people who are in the process, which is basically just saying, you know, we have a whole team of experts working. But
also like to kind of look at, you know, how does infertility fit into a broader cultural picture? And so what I've been doing on the Infertility Voice Facebook page is asking kind of these bigger picture questions. And for me, 2 of the questions that, you know, go beyond just the individual patient experience is, why as a woman do you have, are you gonna have more kids? And there are going to be people who go through the infertility experience that do not parent. That is still one potential outcome of infertility, and I think being able to support that arm of the community is important as well. And then the other big question I ask is, you know, when is Hollywood going to do a non-sensationalized portrayal of infertility that isn't, you know, Octomama and all
Have a
this kind of
baby.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's really important to, you know, start asking, you know, there's on the personal level, but also on the bigger picture level as well.
So I think, and just my last thing that I want to say about the start asking, I think the start asking sometimes can be confusing, but I think the biggest thing is just listen. I think a lot of people's first instinct is to give advice or to offer a solution. I'm an alpha, so I do the same thing. But I think the hardest thing when you're going through infertility is if someone says, oh, well, it's okay because you can just do this or you can do that, or if you relax, or maybe you should just adopt, or, just lots of
Herbal tea.
suggestions. And it's just a really complicated issue, and I think the best thing is just to hear the person out and understand that they're going through something really profound, and there's not a simple solution. So anyway, thank you all for being a part of the panel. We are gonna go watch the movie now, and we will have a Q&A after the movie with Linda and Keiko. It'll be more specific about the film itself. But I wanna thank you all for your patience with our technical difficulties.
Is the Q&A afterwards?
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda.
I just happened to wear this color.
All right.